So, what happens when you realize the life you've built is now heavy? It's heavier than you have realized. You've looked around and you have more stuff than the law allows. You are now responsible for everything. The life you've built, at one point, it was what you wanted. You wanted the 20 pairs of shoes, you wanted all the handbags, you've wanted every room in your house or apartment full, full of all of those wonderful things that you desired at that time. However, as time goes on, you realize the life you've built is now very, very heavy and you feel stuck. You feel stuck because you are surrounded by stuff. It is hard to navigate. It is hard to navigate through the world. It is hard to navigate. You are making payments. You are responsible for all of it. You are, you cannot see a way out. It is the life that you've built. It is the life that has now become very, very heavy. So, in this video, I want to give you perhaps 3 tips that you can use to make your life a lot lighter. So, one of the first things I will share with you is this. First, identify what those things or tangible things are that you can release. Now, you will first have to take inventory of those things, right? It could be books, books you have not read in years. It could be clothing items that you have not worn in many, many years. It could be handbags. It could be shoes. It could be a ton of cars, right? And with all of those things comes a responsibility. So let's take, for instance, the cars. So with the cars, you are responsible for maintaining those vehicles. So if you have one, that's fine. If you have two, then that becomes a choice. If you have more than 2 vehicles that you are maintaining, and I'm speaking of the maintenance of them, the gas, the tax, just everything that goes along with responsibility. So that could be one of the things that you will have to decide on whether one car is sufficient or more than one, right? So those could be an example of items or things that can make your life feel heavy. Now, when it comes to your clothing items, and I was notorious for this. So, as many of you know, I worked in corporate for countless years. Had a wardrobe to go along with it, handbags, hats, shoes, you name it, I had it. So, that could be something that you will have to take inventory of. So, go through your closet and make 3 piles. The, the things you want to keep, the things that you are still thinking about, and the items that you know for certain that you need to get rid of. And I want to share this as well while it's on my mind. A lot of our items that we hold on to, they have an emotional, or we have an emotional attachment to those items. So that can make it very, very difficult. However, in this season, we can give ourselves permission on what we can release. And again, you will have to decide what those items are. If it's something you have not worn in 5 or 10 years, then maybe that's something that you want to get rid of. When it comes to cars, vehicles, if they are sitting in your garage or in your driveway and you have not driven them in countless years, then that could be something you will have to ask yourself the question: is this something that I want, or is this something that I need? So, again, going back to making the 3 piles of your clothing items, ask yourself, is this something that I still wear? If that's the case, then it goes in that pile. If it's something that you are still thinking about, you wear from time to time, perhaps, then put that in pile number 2. In pile number 3, these are all the items you're going to donate, sell, or just get rid of. So again, 3 piles, 3 decisions. So when it comes to, again, your books, you can do the same thing with the books. And with technology nowadays, you know, we can use, you know, Amazon to read our books. You can go to the library, check out a book, and there's always other options. However, if these are books that you just love and you cannot find them again, or you have not read them again, then those are items that you want to perhaps put in the 3 piles, right? And when it comes to any other tangible items, and let's go with your kitchen items, right? What is in your kitchen that you no longer use, right? That can also be items that is making your life very, very heavy. I know for me, I had 5 blenders and juicers, right? A combination of blenders and juices. Well, how many blenders and how many juicers do I really need, right? So I decided to buy one that worked for everything. So I donated the rest. I did not need 5 juicers and blenders, right? Just crazy. So, in any event, I'm going to suggest that you take a look at those items in your kitchen, right? So, we are talking of utilizing the muscle of release. So, when we're releasing things, that could make our life a lot lighter, right? So, what are those things that you are willing to release, right? So, are you willing to release one of your cars or all of your cars? Do you need all of your cars? Um, do you need all of the items in your home, right? And I know oftentimes we tend to accumulate all kinds of things, and especially if we have a garage, right? Do you have a 2 car garage? And one side of the garage is full of all the stuff, right? So go through that garage and take a look at those things that you use or those things that you are no longer using. If you are no longer using those items, then perhaps those are things that you can donate, sell, and that can make your life lighter. Now, let's talk about debt, credit card debt. So, carrying credit card debt could also feel very, very heavy. I know for me, um, as I began to become uncomfortable with the heavy life that I had built, one of the things that made my life very heavy, along with all the items that I had, was carrying a little bit of credit card debt. Now, I've always been one to not charge anything unless I had the money to pay it off in its entirety. So that could also be, and for some, you may be comfortable carrying credit card debt, but credit card debt can feel very, very heavy as well. So take a look at what you have, what you're paying for every month, right? If you have credit card debt, then take a look at that and look at which ones you can get rid of. So I would suggest perhaps taking the, and you may have heard of the debt snowball. And the debt snowball is simply taking the smallest card, or the card with the smallest balance, and working your way up to those cards that have the highest balance that that you've charged. So take the smallest. So say for instance, if you owe $100, pay that $100, pay that card off with that $100. Then take that $100 and put it on the next cards, right? Along with whatever that minimum payment is. So now you're overpaying, and you keep that cycle up until that card or those cards are paid off. And I apologize, I have moved positions and I am now outdoors. And sometimes in life, that is what you have to do. When you are in a space where you are not getting traction, sometimes you have to simply move positions. So that is what I've done this morning. So again, I am talking about releasing things. So again, if your life feels heavy, one of the things you will have to do is release. You have to be willing to let go of things, right? If you want to, here's another thing I'll share with you. Oftentimes, we don't want to get rid of things, but what we end up doing is putting those items in storage, right? So, out of sight, out of mind. However, we are still making payments on something we are no longer using. Now, if you put your items in storage and you know exactly when you're going to get them out, and I'm going to say 1 month, 2 months, no longer than 3 months, right? Then that's okay if that's what you choose to do. However, when it gets into the years, that becomes a bigger issue, because now you're holding on to those items that you are no longer using. However, you are simply continuing to pay for items that they're just simply out of sight, right? But you don't want to get rid of them for whatever reason, probably because all of these items have these emotional attachments, or simply because your life is very, very heavy and you don't want to take the time to go through those things. And that's fair as well. However, in order to make your life lighter, you have to be willing to do the hard stuff. And the hard stuff is to let go, right? So, I've given you a couple of tips that will work. If you use them, you have to be honest with yourself, though. You have to be willing to let go. So, again, the first tip is to make 3 piles. The first pile could be, these are items that you're going to keep because you are still using them, right? The second pile could be, maybe I'm not using them as much, so we're going to sit on this until we get back to it. The third pile would be the pile that you are definitely going to let go, right? So little by little, let go of those items. When it comes to the larger items, then you have to make some tough, tough decisions, right? If you want to be free and you want a life that is lighter, you want a life where you have more choices to live life on your terms, then you will have to make tough decisions. And tough decisions could be letting go, right? So, if this is of interest to you, I want you to ask yourself, what are you willing to let go of, right? So, let's hear in the comments what your thoughts are. And again, this is Mavis from the Freedom Era Collective. Bye for now.